have been waiting to shoot this video now for a couple weeks. Quite a few other projects going on, but today we're here to talk about the latest and the greatest offering from the gentlemen over at XS Power, the gods. This is their new pre-assembled, ready to go, drop in, work with a 12-volt lead-acid battery system in your vehicle, supplemental battery for your car audio and, well, CB needs. This is the xMAX90. This is a cool little battery. Let's see here. Let's just run down the statistics. This thing here weighs 26.6 pounds, or for those of all of you that don't live in a country that didn't go to the moon, 12.1 kilograms. This is a metal-bodied lithium bank battery. There's not a lot of data on this out there, so we're going to play with it today and we're going to establish some data points. On the web page, they're claiming, and I say claiming tongue-in-cheek because I know that this is thoroughly tested. This is a about 12.5 inch, so it's 12.68 inches long. We're looking at about 6 inches high and 6 inches wide. Okay. They're stating on their web page that it can produce 20,000 watts of power. I wish we're saying intermediate duty pulse. Okay, and the way it was described to me as the term was used, bumped. We bumped it. The guys in the car audio world know what that means. You bump it. Literally turn up your bass knob and okay, for just 3-4 seconds. And they're claiming that they've pulled over 1,000 amps on it. On the web page it says 20,000 watts. Now you and I both know that that's kind of a sales game. Go back number. Okay. They're claiming that this thing can outrush current of 1,351 amps, so it'd be 1,351.351351351351. Check my math if you want. It's simple. It's 20,000 watts divided by 14.8 volts. This is a 14.8 volt max battery. Okay. The whole idea behind this is that you get this battery. You run your multiple strands of aught gauge or 2-aught gauge or 4-aught gauge or whatever to this battery. And then you hook up your big subsystem or your big, 24 pill or 32 pill to this thing. It's got distribution blocks on the top of it, so you don't have to worry about any of that crap. And it takes up a very small amount of space, and it helps maintain the voltage at the amplifiers. And because it's lithium, your alternators aren't having to push the battery up, and then when your battery when your amplifiers, car audio amplifiers, your CB amplifiers, your ham amplifiers, put a load upon this thing, they're drawn from your 14.5, 14.8 charge point, and not having to pull all the current down the battery or down the cables from the alternator, and then have to overcome the 12.5 volt supplemental battery you have back by your system. That's the whole point behind this. It was the same point behind the lithium, the LTO batteries that I came out a couple years ago. By the way, those 3 video segments alone represent 4.5 million impressions. That's how many people those videos have been in front of as far as a suggested thumbnail, and over 250,000 views on those LTO batteries, which are the high quality rewrapped Yinglong batteries. Best battery system I've ever come across. The downside of those LTO batteries, and in the configuration that I suggested, is that you can't run them with the lead acid, because the lead acid will pull. If you charge a lithium battery up to, let's say, 15 volts, the lead acid, because of its chemical limitations and its charge level, will pull this battery or the LTO batteries down to 12.5, so we had to get rid of the 12.5 lead acid batteries in the vehicle. This is not an under-the-hood certified piece of equipment. You do not mount this in your engine compartment. There's been quite a few lithium batteries that have gotten stuffed underneath the hood of vehicles, and they go to car shows, or they go to breaks, and they go to functions, and the vehicle's sitting there running on a 115-degree day, and then there's a problem. This is something that you put inside the vehicle itself. That's the reason it's manufactured the way that it is. It comes in an all metal, really cool custom cabinet enclosure with a plexiglass impact resistant lid. This is designed to be used with your lead acid system that you have underneath the hood. The downside with lithium batteries running your whole vehicle is they don't have a lot of long-term storage, but they have a great deal of outrush ability. Okay, they can give up their electrons a lot faster than a lead acid battery can, but when your alarm is armed on your truck and you've only got two 35 amp hour batteries in your entire vehicle, and the alarm system's constantly talking to the cellular network and two-way communication and sensors and LED indicator lights and all that stuff, over about a week or two's worth of time, it'll pull the battery from its resting point of 15 volts. It'll pull it down to like an 8 volt status to where you can't even unlock your vehicle. So, I'm not saying that's the case with this battery, I'm saying with the LTOs. This battery here is designed to work hand in hand with your 12.5 volt underneath the hood. So this thing is designed so that you can turn your vehicle off, have your, regular 1000 amp lead acid long storage battery, because this is a 90 amp. The ones that we had before that were 35 amp hour. So this is what? Basically having two LTO 35 amp cells, cell bank batteries together. This is designed to work with your 1000 amp lead acid battery underneath the hood, but then when you turn your vehicle on, it'll charge up to its full 14.8 volts, and then you can start burping and running your stereo, and it allows you from not having to have 15 alternators underneath your hood. You just have one or two. This battery is your supplemental storage, and you're done. They were kind enough to send up their suggested charger. Now with all batteries, all lithium batteries, we know this going back to the beginning of the cell phone industry that we currently have going on, our own little personal portable computer devices, these things. As soon as you get it out of the box, let's plug it in, let's get it charged. So what we're going to go over in this video is getting it out of the box, getting it plugged in and getting it charged, and then we're going to beat the shit out of it. And you guys know me. We're going to let the smoke out of something testing this thing. Let's go. In true transparency, XS is just loaning me this charger, and they're also loaning me the battery. I have not received a single penny, nor would I ever receive a single penny from any product that I put up on this workbench, either to test, review, or demonstrate its quality. This is not how we roll here. They're not into me for any money, I'm not into them for any money. I do have the option to buy this thing if I am interested in wanting to keep it. This is the charger. This is the LI1208. Let's see what's inside the box. Okay, pretty straightforward. Got our paperwork, user's guide, 1 year limited time warranty, a couple extra replacement fuses, the actual charging unit itself, some charge leads. This is an 8 amp charger designed for 12 volt lithium ion battery. Sweet. One power plug. Alright, alright, alright. Warranty. Please read for potential return purposes. This item is considered hazardous. If damaged or defective, by law, this item cannot be shipped by air. If there are concerns regarding this item, where it needs to be returned, please contact the location that you purchased the unit from. They should be able to help you ship it safely, with shipping procedures to ensure that it's returned safely to the manufacturer. Also, please make sure the packaging, lithium in the way that will mitigate the chance of damage happening during shipping. Your item is returned to manufacturer damage and potentially poorly packaged, your warranty claim will be denied. So basically, if you take this incredibly expensive battery, you throw it inside of a single walled cardboard box, and then decide that you're going to ship it across the country and it receives damage from shipping, and you're expecting a warranty return on the battery and it gets damaged, it's on you, not them. Be advised. Okay. So in here, we've got a couple stickers. Lord knows we love our stickers here. Yes, we do. All right, set these over here. Nice, nice, very nice foam packing job. I'm happy with what I see. Here, let me show you. This makes me so excited because it comes with a balancer inside. It's to help keep all the cells at the same charge rate. Oh, this is neat. Okay, let's just take a couple seconds and let's talk about what we're looking at here. So, these are lithium iron phosphate battery cells, or otherwise known as the LFP batteries. What we were working with before was the LTOs. The reason that I suggested the LTOs is because of a safety thing. And the LFP is right behind the LTO as far as safety goes. I mean, like right behind it. There are certain lithium batteries that if you puncture them, they explode in fire. If you get them wet, they'll erupt even more violently in fire. There's some downsides to other styles of lithium batteries. The only lithium batteries that have ever been suggested on this channel or on this workbench are these two batteries, LTO and LFP. Okay? There's some really good ideas behind this. I'm going to throw in a little chart here. If we look at this chart, you'll see at the very top, LFP. We're going to look at the lifespan here. Very, very long. Okay? It's got a little bit higher electrical density than most, and its thermal stability is exceptional. Exceptional. Now, if we go down here to the LTOs, we can see the battery lifespan is very long, okay? The potential of the thing having a problem, very low. The electrical density on it, moderate. Thermal stability, moderate. The cost, high in comparison to the LFPs. So the LFPs give us a little bit better electrical density, okay? And their cost is a little bit lower, but you have to maintain a case around the battery to maintain all these other specifications, right? There's got to be constant pressure on the cells. We don't want the prismatic cell portions of the battery to expand, and then we end up having all kinds of issues inside the cell itself chemically. But the LTO by far is the safest battery of them all. If you puncture it, it doesn't burst into flames. If you set it on fire, it doesn't burst into flames. If you submerge it in water, it doesn't burst into flames. The same thing with the LFPs. But the LFP doesn't lend itself to being a home gamer battery. You really don't. They make all different body styles of the LFP. They're primarily assembled basically like a brick, or you know, they look like a deck of cards with two terminals on the top. They do have a little bit better battery life than the LTOs. They have slightly better electrical density to them, but their footprint is dramatically smaller. Okay, those are the main differences. This is still an incredibly safe battery. Incredibly safe battery. Now they're talking, if you take and run this battery to, let's say, 80% depletion, which is pretty deep into the lithium battery environment, if you discharge this battery down to 80%, they're talking 2,800 to 3,000 cycles. Well, most of us, me, you, most of us, we're going to maintain and keep the battery life up, right? So we're going to keep it in a 12 to 14 volt positive environment all the time, which is only, what, 25, 30% depleted? at the most. So that number of 3,000 cycles, that's from fully charged to 80% discharged. Now we're taking 3,000, you know, that 3,000 number gets bigger because we're going from fully charged to only maybe 1/4% charged versus 80% discharged. The 3,000 number gets out into the 10,000s. All right. The fact that there's a balancer built in on this and it's in a hard metal case already with pressure on the cells this way, pretty friggin' neat. Pretty friggin' neat. Let's get this up out of this case, but I really want to stress before we do it, before we get this out of the case, I'm going to leave in the description below a secondary video that is completely independent from me. It was made in Europe, and it was with a whole bunch of different fire agencies where they tested what would happen to the different battery styles that are out there. You've got the Hedgeway styles of batteries, you've got the LTOs, and then the LFPs like this, where they overcharge them, they puncture them, they set them on fire, they submerge them in water. And I want you guys to, if you're really interested in how this all works, to go watch that video as well, and that'll help you understand that this is just as safe as the LTOs, as long as you keep pressure on the battery and you don't overcharge it. 14.8, so you want to keep it at 14.8. Let's not run past that. And this little balancer will super extend the life of the battery. Okay? Let's get this up out of the case. Go watch that video if you're interested to see what happens if we test a full destruction. That's where we pull a cell out, run a pick through it, watch it, see if it catches on fire. If we take and hit it with a blowtorch, what happens to the cell, and then if we overcharge it by 50%. Very educational video. There's no speaking or words or anything. They literally run it through each one of the tests and they show you what happens. So if you're interested, go watch that. Let's get this beautiful creation out of this box and let's get it up on the workbench. This thing is just gorgeous. Good job, guys. If I'm not mistaken, this is XS's own design balancer at this point. These guys have really been going, I mean, look at how small this thing is compared to my hand, right? Here, hold on. Let me introduce the one ring to rule them all. Put a Hyundai on top of this thing so you can get an idea of scale. This thing is tiny. If you are from my world, in the CB world, where it's not uncommon to have 12 alternators on your stuff and, you know, have a giant 18-volt battery bank in the back of your Suburban, you got to figure your 18-volt battery bank, so 12-volt and 6-volt battery strapped together, you would probably need 5 or 6 of those 18-volt banks, or basically 5 or 6 12-volt batteries, to equal the outrush current capability of this little tiny package. I mean, it's a little micro package, man. Look at this. It's like a size, well, it'd be a size 12 shoebox in length, but only big enough to hold one shoe. Legit. In the package, which is amazing, by the way, the foam packaging job, good job at the guys at XS, you will receive your mounting hardware, which is just basically some Allen nuts and some lock washers to go on the 4 attachment points here on the top. So I say I grab a couple of them, and let's go ahead and we'll thread these in. I'll say one. Yeah, we'll go one here. Thread this in. We'll thread this in. And we'll bust out the charger, get it hooked up, and we'll let it do its thing. Out of the box, the resting voltage on the unit that I received was 13.3233. Over here, we've got our smart charger. This is a 110-220 input, currently wired 110. Output automatic computer-driven smart charger. It's got all kinds of different cutoffs in it, and it really regulates how much shmoo it puts out. It's got an automatic charge cycle timing to it to allow that you don't overheat the battery. When you plug it in, let's go ahead, we'll plug this thing in. We'll see that it's got two LED lights on it right here. On, so red and green. Status, that means power on. All right. So now once we connect our terminal here, grab that on there, this turns to red, which means it's in charge status mode. And it's currently pushing 8.3 amps on the battery. So we'll see this slowly come up. This procedure is going to take a little bit of time, I have a feeling, at that amount of inrush. Remember, storage, 1400 amps, outrush C capability. It's a 90 amp hour battery, which is really scooch and cool, in my opinion. When this thing turns green, you are complete. Now, I'd like to believe that you could put this into a system as a maintainer, but if you put it in your vehicle with a 12.5 volt lead acid battery, I would probably have to make the argument that you could not use this as a lithium battery maintainer with a lead acid battery in circuit. I don't know, I'd have to test that, so you can't get me to definitively say either way. I mean, we could always hook it up to the 2500 amp 15.8 volt supply, or we could hook it up to the 1500 amp variable from 7 all the way out to 15.9 volt supply. But we're going to let this thing do its thing. We're going to let the current flow into the battery nice and slow. As you can see, we're already up a tenth of a volt. So we shall return. Okay, so the battery charger topped out at 15 point whatever it was, 15.3, 15.1. And I went ahead and I jumped over to the workbench power supply. I have the workbench power supply set at 14.8 and the battery's sitting steady at 14.96. We have that hooked up to our 1000 amp carbon pile, and I'm going to hit this thing as hard as I can. Keep in mind, this is like a 12 volt car automotive battery as far as the voltage is concerned. If they were to add one more cell to it, then we could get to a little bit higher voltage, but it's not the point behind this battery. Battery is designed to complement your stock electrical system in your vehicle. So we're going to disconnect our positive lead and just let it hang out over here. Just make sure I got that on frame so nobody thinks I'm cheating or nothing. Okay, there's nothing else attached. Right now the fans are pulling about an amp on it, 0.8. Now if we sit here and we just watch this thing, if I did not have the carbon pile attached, let's just go ahead and disconnect this for a second. The battery wants to rest at about 13 volts. That's where it's designed to be. Each one of these cells is 3.2 volts. Well, this is a bank of 4, which represents 4 3.2 volt cells that are all in parallel. And then we're going to series that with another bank of 4 that's series with another bank of 4 with series with another bank of 4. That's how we get our voltage, but our amp hours stay the same. Okay, so it's 90 amps. So that means we can pull 90 amps on this for an hour. That's the idea. So if you have 3.2, okay, it works out to be 12 and some change, right? So it's like 12.8, if I'm not mistaken. Because of that, we're not going to be able to share that same characteristics of the voltage resting higher. But let's go ahead, and this, between the balancer and then the cells balancing out. We're sitting pretty steady at 14.2, but if we were to let this sit for 4 or 5 hours, we'll see that this voltage will drop down. Eventually, it'll come down to around 13 volts. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's hook up the carbon pile. And what we have is our attachment points. We have one piece of 1/0 going over to the power supply, which is currently disconnected. Another piece of 1/0 going over to the power supply on the ground side. Our hookup points are 3/4 inch, 1/4 inch thick, or not quarter, pardon me, 1/8 inch thick copper bars. All right. I wish the supplied hardware was a little bit longer, but it's neither here nor there. There's penetration issues and all kinds of other things we need to think about. So they supply you the hardware. You might need to go get some little bit longer material, right? And remember, if you choose to use stainless, always put a little bit of oil on that hardware. I don't even care if it's earwax, butt cheese, I don't care. It's got to have a little bit of oil on the threads to keep it from galling because it's stainless. Just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and let's turn our carbon pile up a little bit. Here's 400 amps of load. We'll tease this up to about 400 amps. There's 400 pretty steady. And we'll see where we sit. So we're resting at 12.8 now with 400 amps worth of load, which is pretty impressive in its own right. This is the load going to the carbon pile. This is the voltage on the battery. 12.7. $460 amps, so we're climbing a little bit. Let's back this off a little bit. So we now know that we can run a 16 pill off of this for a great deal of time. We have no supplementary charge on the system at all. We're running just on the storage capacity of the battery. This is 500 amps worth of load, 400 amps worth of load out of this little tiny package. Oh, over 1,000 amps. Put it right at 1,000 amps. Wow. Man, you try this with a lead acid battery, it would drop off to nothing like that. It would drop off 10, 11 volts. Probably 10 volts or lower. And look, the batteries are covering. All right, well, let's pretend like it's hooked up to an alternator. And we'll inrush 400 or 500 amps into it. So we saw 410 over here. Still pulling about an amp over here or so with the fans. Ah, that's impressive. Wow, that's impressive. So 266 amps. Think of how long we pulled the load on this though. Oh yeah, battery's a little warm. The balancer is the hottest thing in the battery. Our terminals are 83 degrees. This terminal is 82 degrees. And our contact point on our little jaws of life are 125 and 122. The amount of current that we just jerked out of this battery, and now we're slamming back into it. So the carbon pile's at, well, it's not too bad. It's 140 degrees inside of there. Now this is the one that I caught on fire when I built my 2,500 amp power supply. So the meter shunt in here disintegrated. I didn't even think about it when I blew this up. I could have just taken this right back over to Harbor Freight and gotten another one. No questions asked. But no, what did my dumb ass do? I went and I got brand new 1/0 gauge cable and rebuilt the whole inside, and I didn't bother to rebuild the shunt because the carbon pile is the only thing I care about. So we're still pulling a pretty steady 245 amps continuous going into the battery. Let's let it recharge. Look at the amp meter counting down. 70, 69. You guys have to think of a battery like a big giant parking lot. The best way I've ever heard it described, this is kind of how I thought about it in my head, but not in such a good visual representation. Elon Musk described this the best. You have to think of a battery like a big parking lot. Like, think like a mall parking lot, okay? Where there's tens of thousands and tens of thousands of parking spaces, right? So you got all these different points for the cars to get in. We'll say those are electrons. And each one of the cars is looking for a place to park. You can put a whole bunch of cars in that parking lot relatively fast, up to about 80, 85%. The rest of the time, to get the parking lot full, let's say 10,000 cars, you can run in 8,000 cars pretty quick. Then that additional 2,000 cars are running around looking for an empty parking space. Think about it. That's the best way to describe how any electrical chemical battery works. The electrons are looking for a parking spot in the battery per se, a spot on the plates inside the battery. That last, to get it up to 100%, takes the longest amount of time. So from 80 to 100% takes the longest amount of time versus from 0 to 80. You can get way more electrons in from 0 to 80 than you can from 80 to 100%. Fully charged. You're resting at 14.9. We're pulling 1 amp here, and we're maintaining our amperage, as we can see right here. This is our power supply voltage. That's the amperage coming through. Over here on the wall is the meter shunt. We're not using the big supply. There's no need for it. We're using the little one down below. So let's take a look at the heat of the battery, because now the battery just had to do a bunch of work. About 80 degrees. Our ambient air temperature is 77, 76, somewhere in there. We just ripped the electrons out of the battery and then slammed them all back in. So we basically emptied the parking lot down to 80% and then slammed it back full again. Now with the power supply hooked up, let's start putting some load to this thing. So there's 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. God, I'm starting to sound like Gold Rush. Okay, there's 1,000 amps on this battery. And we're only pulling 400 amps out of the supply. The battery is making up the additional 600, 400, 700 amps. That's 1,000 amp load. We'll let this back off for a second. So this would be like you hitting this big bass note, or you throwing a 30 hertz tone, and your amplifier is sitting there going, it's pulling, 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 pulling. Your alternator's in the background. Your 350 amp alternator's in the background. Meanwhile, your voltage has stayed above 12 volts. The boost controller inside the power supply is nice and happy because it's getting the right voltage that it wants. It's the same thing with us CB guys. Your volts are going to stay up. They're never going to dive below 12. I'm freaking digging this thing, man. I'm freaking digging this thing. So right now we're filling up to 80%. The current's rushing in as fast as it can. As fast as it can, as fast as it can, as fast as it can, as fast as it can. You know, I just built a 64 pill. I bet you that this little battery would run that no problem. I'll have to test that. But not in this video. So now watch. As soon as we get up to about 80%, you're going to notice this thing's going to start to drop like a slot machine in Vegas. Here we go. So we're about 80%. Look at our voltage. Look, dropping like a slot machine in Vegas. It's always that last 1 or 2% that takes the longest though. The cars are really running around inside the battery. Every time we do this, we're creating heat in the battery. So now we're up to 83, 85.8. So now it's slowing down. We can see it slowing down over here. We're at 14.8, so we're technically full. You see how it slowed way down? It's that last 1 or 2%, but that up to 80, it's pretty quick. So you're bumping your bass or you're keying down on your radio. Boom, 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 boom. Hey Bob, it's Kevin, John, Fred, and Mark. And we're over here and we got down on key. Or turn the volume down because you just got done bass boosting. Look at how quickly the battery recovers. This is an impressive battery. This thing is impressive. I mean, it really is. I cannot wait to do a couple more tests with this little thing. I think what I'll do is probably tomorrow, I'm going to hook a 16 pill to it and run it. 16 pill and a 4 pill. And hit it and quit it and see what it does. And then I'm going to probably drag it out and put it in my truck. And I'll take my LTO bank out and I'll put this in its place. And we'll run my Crown A6000 GTI off of it and we'll see what we get for voltage and voltage drop. And then we'll run my 48 pill on it and we'll see what we get for it, for watts and for voltage drop. So for now, this is the end of the deal. So as always, remember our friends at Penna Lab, mention my name, get 5% off any purchase. Any new time purchasers get 15% discount. Big shout out to XS, obviously. MechMan, Bird, Coaxial Dynamics, and by the way, Coaxial Dynamics totally hooked me up. They said send in my 25 kW element and they'll take good care of me there. And as always, thank you to Patreon supporters. They're the ones that make it possible for us to have these long form videos without any interruption by ads. It is overwhelming, the ads that are on YouTube now. Lord. I'm going to let this thing rest. I'm going to come out here tomorrow. We'll get a voltage measurement on it to see where it decided it's going to just belly itself out and chill out for a hot minute. And big thanks to all of you guys. On that note, I'm going to run. I hope you guys are all having a beautiful week so far. And remember, go vote. And I'll see you. Bye.